Good morning, everybody. I'll have the test that everybody switched their speakers off to begin with. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody today to the Housing and Social Wellbeing Committee, today the 27th of November. I'd like to firstly, could we introduce the top table here? I have Elaine Ritchie, the Strategic Lead for Housing and Communities. Adrian's not here, and Jessica, well, not so yeah, sorry, Darren. My apologies. Aaron Singh, who's a Strategic Lead for Children's, Families and Justice. We're obviously here for his Justice Brief. And to my right here, Jessica Guild from Democratic Services. Can I ask you to notify any apologies? And
thank you, Convener. We have apologies today from Bailey Brock with Councillor Cuthbert substituting, Councillor Forbes with Councillor Chan substituting, Councillor James with Councillor Illingworth substituting, and from Councillor Welch. There's a few members online. I'll ask to confirm they're present. Councillor Braun.
I'm here, Jess. Yep.
Councillor Chan.
present.
Councillor Illingworth.
Present.
Councillor McCall.
Present.
And Bailey McLaren.
Present.
Thank you. All other members are in the chambers, Convener.
Thank you very much. Can I remind people, if they wish to get my attention and to enter into debate, to use the chat function in Teams. Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? Can we agree the minutes of our previous meeting on the 2nd of October?
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Item 4 on our agenda is the outstanding business statement. All the actions in this are complete. Is there any comment or questions? Thank you very much. Item 5 on our agenda is the Scottish Fire and Rescue end of year performance report. That's from April the 1st to the 30th of September. It says end of year, it's not end of year performance, it's 6-month performance review. Can I ask Craig Wallace, the Group Commander, to introduce the report, please?
Certainly. Good morning, Convener. Just before I cover off the performance report for the 1st of April, the 30th of September, could I hand you over to Local Senior Officer Brian Todd, who was going to cover off a couple of strategic topics. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Good morning, Convener. Thanks, Craig, and good morning, committee members. I'd just like to take this opportunity to provide you with a very brief strategic overview of some areas of work taking place at the moment. The Strategic Service Review Programme, the SSRP for short. The SFRS, like any public body, is facing challenges financially at the moment in operational circumstances. To help ease this burden, we're carrying out a package of change proposals during 2023-24. Then between April this year, April and June, we conducted a public consultation exercise to gather input on the future direction of the service. The survey received over 6,500 responses, and these are currently being used to guide and enhance decision making by identifying change options that are strategically sound, operationally feasible and financially viable. Options to be made for final public consultation was planned for February 2025. However, due to the amount of data and information received, it's likely that this timeline will be extended to the early spring. During the first phase of SSRP, a review was carried out on the disposition of height appliances available through the SFRS, and through this review it was decided that the combined aerial rescue pump, that's the CARP for short, currently at Perth, would be replaced by a dedicated height appliance, brand new appliance. Due to unforeseen circumstances, there's been a requirement to accelerate the replacement of another height appliance within the service, which will now have an impact and delay the replacement for Perth for around 18 to 24 months. The CARP will remain at Perth being used as a height appliance only, so we're in no worse state. We've had that for over 10 years now, and that will continue until we can get the new appliance to replace that. In terms of local plan update, due to the Strategic Service Review, the SSRP that's been carried out, like I've just mentioned, the SFRS board had made the decision to postpone the development of the new strategic plan and new local fire service plans. Development of our next strategic plan is underway with the aim of finalising this for the summer 2025. From that point, I will start to develop our local plans, considering local priorities for our area based on any potential change proposals from the SSRP process and the priorities of the strategic plan. And I'll present these to you for scrutiny, and we'll share more detailed timeline for development with you over the next few months to keep you updated. I'd just like to convey my thanks for your continued patience in this matter, and if you have any immediate concerns, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. And finally, just a new home fire safety visit process. We've been making changes to our home fire safety visit programme, and as of January 2025, we will be delivering a more targeted visit to high-risk individuals who meet a new eligibility criteria incorporating wider health and social care issues. This is based around factors which we know increases someone's risk of fire, and that's from fire fatality research. And we've also reviewed and updated our visit content and are exploring ways to strengthen moving forward. We'll look at onward referrals and signposting to and from partner organisations, as we know from experience that individuals involved in fatal and serious fires are often known to partner organisations, but not to us. We have contacted our key partners to let them know what changes are happening and provide details on how they can assist us to make communities safer through the delivery of this key fire safety programme. Key agencies and services have been invited to become our valued home fire safety visit partners and build upon the success of our current home fire safety work. We've also offered to provide training and support their staff and refer individuals to their organisation to access services where appropriate. Our aim is to work with organisations across Perth and Kinross to raise fire safety awareness and ensure we have information sharing processes in place to identify and engage with those most at risk. I appreciate there's a lot of information in there, and I'm more than happy to take any questions at the end of Craig's presentation of the report. And without further ado, I'll hand you over to Craig to cover the report that he's provided.
Thank you, Brian. So, yeah, I'll now give a brief summary of the highlights from the performance report as previously introduced. So for priority 1, during this reporting period, there were 67 accidental dwelling fires, which is 61% of the annual target of 110. So the main source of ignition at 49 of the incidents was due to a cooking appliance, with no firefighter action required at 30 incidents, and the main action taken by the Fire and Rescue Service being removal from a heat source at 20 incidents. So 52 properties were fitted with smoke detection, of which 39 operated and gave early warning to the occupants. So we are committed to reducing accidental dwelling fires, with the delivery of home fire safety visits remaining a key focus in our community safety activity to reduce this incident type. We continue to explore and develop partnerships throughout the area to identify those most vulnerable and at risk from fire or harm within their home. It was pleasing to note that during the period there were no fatalities as a result of accidental dwelling fires within Perth and Kinross. However, there were 3 non-fatal casualties, which is 20% of the annual target of 15. To provide some context to this, all of the casualties were treated on scene and did not need to attend hospital. In relation to priority 2, there were 12 non-domestic building fires in this reporting period, which is 40% of the annual target of 30. There were no fatal or non-fatal casualties reported. For priority 3, we attended 55 RTCs, which is 69% of our annual target of 80. This resulted in 4 fatal and 44 non-fatal casualties. So over the reporting period, we have been working closely with partners in the the Perth and Kinross Road Safety Partnership to identify and deliver reduction initiatives across the area. We will continue working towards this priority to drive down the number of RTCs in Perth and Kinross and the associated fatal and non-fatal casualties resulting from them. For priority 4, reducing unwanted fire alarm signals, the SFRS mobilised 135 UFAS incidents from a total of 534 false alarms. This continues to be a significant decrease on previous years due to a change in how we respond to this incident type. To give some context, by reducing the number of UFAS incidents we attend has realised a number of benefits, not only for the SFRS, but for the business community in Perth and Kinross, such as the number of unnecessary blue light journeys have significantly reduced. This has reduced the road risk around these journeys and carbon emissions from our fire appliances. The SFRS has had more time available for critical training and prevention initiatives. Duty holders have taken more ownership of alarm actuations within their premises, and the time lost by businesses while waiting for the SFRS to arrive and verify a false alarm has been greatly reduced. Moving on to priority 5, we attended 22 deliberate primary fires, which is 69% of our annual target of 32. Partnership working is key to reducing deliberate fires, and we continue to work with partners through the Safer Communities Partnership to reduce the number of deliberate fires in the area. The SFRS also works in partnership to deliver a fire safety support and education programme to those under the age of 18. Through the delivery of tailored interventions, this programme offers a flexible approach to assist in the education of those who demonstrate an unsafe interest in fire or fire-related antisocial behaviour. Throughout this reporting period, the SFRS completed 1 intervention consisting of 4 young people across Perth and Kinross. And for priority 6, our firefighters continue to train in all aspects of their role to ensure they are operationally prepared, and we continue to gather information on local risks to assist us and in an emergency through our operational intelligence visits. So finally, you will note in Appendix 1 some of the thematic campaigns that we have focused our resources and safety messaging towards during this reporting period. So to give the committee a little bit more insight, some of the key initiatives delivered include a multi-agency road safety event in collaboration with partners at the House of Brewer in July. The team showcased their expertise through live demonstrations of extrication techniques, emphasising the importance of interagency cooperation, highlighting road safety on and around the A9. The event aimed to raise public awareness and prevent RTCs, distributing safety information and providing virtual reality simulation sessions. Also, a second successful annual Emergency Services Day was hosted at Perth Community Fire Station, building upon the positive impact of the pilot event held the previous year. In addition to SFRS personnel undertaking an extrication demonstration, the event brought together representatives from a wide range of emergency services, including Police Scotland, Scottish Ambulance Service, HM Coast Guard, Trossachs Search and Rescue and the Heritage Trust. The day offered attendees the opportunity to learn about fire and water safety through engaging demonstrations and discussions with our community action team. Career advice was also available for those considering a future in the emergency services. Also over the summer months, the crew from Kinlochrannoch, in partnership with Forestry and Land Scotland, engaged with visitors to the local area who were camping or taking part in outdoor activities around the loch. This was to raise awareness of water safety, highlight risks around cooking in tents and the carbon monoxide risks within motorhomes, as well as the risk of wildfires from barbecues and campfires. And finally, over our 6-week periods, crews from Perth and Kinross have delivered water safety inputs to around 4,900 pupils at over 20 primary school engagement sessions across the area. Also, 170 S1 pupils attended Blair Gowrie Community Fire Station for a water safety event, receiving input into the associated hazards and risks, throw lines and CPR in partnership with our Blue Light partners and third sector groups. So thank you, Convener. Area Commander Todd and I will now welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for either Brian or Greg? So we'll start with Bailey Ahern.
Thanks very much, and thank you both for your report. My question's on the Indicator 8 fatal RTCs, and we've got 4 recorded, and that's quite a high number. Can I just ask a bit more details about that? Was that a single incident or 4 instances? And dare I ask, was it on the A9? And if it was it on any of the undualed sections?
I don't actually have that information to hand, Bailey Ahern, but it's certainly something that I can provide by interrogating our system in a bit more detail.
Thank you.
Bailey McLaren.
Thanks. Thanks for the report. You know, it's really revealing all these statistics and the report, and in general, it's really positive. My question was more about the initiatives, the House of Brewer event. Is there plans to make those a little bit more regular than just once every 6 months or so, or once every, it seems like maybe you had a singular event, and it sounded like from what you're saying it was a positive event. Is there a plan to maybe roll them out a bit more frequently?
Yes, thank you for your question. Yeah, obviously after every event that we undertake, we do an evaluation to see how effective the event was. It can sometimes be difficult to know if it has had an impact on outcomes, albeit elements that we can consider as part of the evaluation, as we are trying to move forward to multi-agency events and not just fire service delivered events, solely delivered events. They can be a little bit more complex to organise, and that's where our Perth and Kinross Road Safety Partnership really steps in alongside our community planning development group to identify where the pinch points are on historical data and to coordinate them. So I think that was the second one that we had in July. So I would like to think that we could host them at least twice a year. It is quite resource intensive, but it was good evaluation from it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And now for my hat trick of Bailey's, Bailey Williamson.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's really, really positive. I was just wondering if it's possible to outline the challenges there are in the recruitment and training of retrained fire crews across Perth and Kinross, particularly in the rural areas.
Yes, certainly. In relation to that, I could probably share some information in relation to a new National Joint Council banding terms and conditions to hopefully assist with a bit more flexibility within that cadre of staff, where currently we have 2 bands of retainers, so it's either a 75% or 100% retainer, and they obviously have to commit to X amount of incidents depending what retainer they're in. As of the 1st of January, there will be 5 bandings that will come in, and that is based on hours, and it goes right down a 0 to 30 hour contract. So we should be able to start identifying pinch points. For instance, a single parent that's maybe children are at school between 9 and 3, we would perhaps be able to offer them a smaller contract where they are just given that commitment to hopefully improve appliance availability. So we are always looking at new ways of bolstering that local availability across the rural communities, because we all know that the profiles have changed. The local tradesmen don't necessarily work within their community. They have to go that bit further afield for work and such like. So the 5 bandings that are coming in as of the 1st of January should hopefully give us room to improve the availability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, convener. I wanted to ask about the accidental dwelling fires, which are kind of on the increase steadily for the past 3 years in the reporting period. How does the increase in accidental dwelling fires correlate to the number of home fire safety visits? And previously, I think in this sort of report, we've been told that alcohol was a significant factor in the accidental dwelling fires, particularly with sources of ignition and cooking appliances. And what happens after you attend an accidental dwelling fire where you suspect that alcohol was a factor? Is there any referral or a joined up a signposting or contact with alcohol services in Perth and Kinross?
Yes, thank you for your question. So we don't have any data that directly correlates that accidental dwelling fires are reducing due to home fire safety visits. Obviously, home fire safety visits are identifying vulnerabilities that we can then signpost to other agencies. That tends, our referral process tends to go to social work, and then they'll put it out to further agencies or alcohol drug dependency groups and such like. We don't tend to refer direct to them, albeit when it comes to case case reviews, we would contribute to anything from that perspective. So yeah, that's where we are in relation to home fire safety visits, and the signposting does get done through our adult protection notifications. The very same happens post-incident, so we call them post-domestic response visits. So we would target obviously at least the premises involved with a home fire safety visit. So whether that would be at the time or if it wasn't obviously convenient, it would be at a slightly later time. And then any risks that we are identifying, clearly a history of fire or what has been the cause of the fire would be consideration, and we would do an adult protection referral through social work on that basis. We also would do a reassurance element of the local community, and that's very much dependent. You know, if it's maybe a flat within a tenement block, we would give reassurance to the other occupiers within that block, and that can be through distribution of information and advice, or it can be by a home fire safety visit as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of reassurance that we do that follow-up piece after incidents. We do make sure that there's working smoke detection within properties. There is referrals done through social work if required. And yeah, we follow up as required from that perspective. Brian, I don't know if there's anything that you want to come in relation to.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mentioned earlier on about the new home fire safety visit process, and that is really heavily weighted on our partners being involved in that, and our signposting and referral processes from that. We're quite in a fortunate position that we can get into people's homes prior to any emergency, and we can identify the people most at need, and we can signpost them through our processes like Craig's just mentioned. But I think key to this is identifying those at most in need, and like you say, is having those signposting and the ability to involve partners to make sure people get the help that that's needed. And certainly we've got robust processes in place through our AP1 process, identifying people that need that, but that'll be strengthened by our new process and the integration of partners working closely with us to get them signposted and get them the help that they need. So I think I know that the new home fire safety visit process will strengthen just exactly what you said there. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Could I just come back on the adult protection referral? Can you tell me, is it automatic if you suspect that the alcohol was involved in that there's an adult protection referral, or is it only in certain circumstances that you would do that?
I think if it was a contributing factor to the fire, the incident, so if it was, you know, almost a distraction element, you know, falling asleep, that side of things, then we would probably look to put in a referral. If the person's under the influence of alcohol when we turn up at the incident, but not necessarily that has been the cause of the fire, then we wouldn't necessarily put in a referral. So it would just be almost on a case-by-case basis with the incident commander on scene to determine what the risk factors are within that property. And if the alcohol or drugs or anything else has been a contributing factor to the fire.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Convener. My question really follows on more along the same lines as Councillor Barrett there just now. When you said this accidental dwelling fires and you talked a little bit maybe cooking and etc., we know that the tragedy at Grenfell was caused by a tumble dryer going on fire, etc., which you will know about. Do you go to these incidents and find that the tumble dryer's going up, the washing machine's going up, and you find a trend towards a certain manufacturer, etc.? Now, I know that, you know, it's probably out with your remit to do all these things, but do you seem to find that there's a particular manufacturer, and can you do anything about that, or do you take notes on that at all? Because I can imagine it's been in the press recently where somebody's suing another company regarding something like that. Have you had a notice it, or have you noticed something happening in a particular company? Thank you.
Certainly. So after every incident, we complete records incident recording on our incident recording system. Now that covers a whole range of information from the cause to, manufacturer, and whether it was a potentially an electrical fault and such like. So that is all recorded on a main database, which is interrogated by our fire investigation team, and they'll look at trends, whether that's with manufacturers or specific appliance types, and they would be our conduit back through probably the NFCC, which is a National Fire Chiefs Council, to be sharing that information across the UK Fire and Rescue Service network, just to kind of correlate and ensure that it's not just an issue maybe in Scotland or part of Scotland, it's a wider issue. So we do have recorded mechanisms that picks up that information, and then the scrutiny element is there at a national level, and then obviously at a UK level as well. Thank you.
Correct. Is that information made to the public? Because I can imagine if there are a whole pile of a certain manufacturing up, I ain't going to go and buy it.
I don't know the process for like the NFCC obviously engaging with manufacturers if they're then identifying that there is a potential issue with one of their products. That would tie into product recalls and such like. So I don't have the exact answer for you in relation to that, but it's something that I could do a bit digging and find out for you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Councillor Braun, and Councillor Braun, it looks like you're going to get a free run with your 3 questions at the moment.
Thanks, Convener. Unfortunately, there's only 2 now because Councillors Barrett and Smith pretty much covers one of my questions between them. So just 2. So the first of them, at the preliminary introduction mentioned the height appliance was 10 years old, and probably another 2 years before it's replaced. So my question simply was, I mean, what is the life expectancy of this equipment, and does it get the maintenance cost, if you like, and the maintenance time increase as the age wears on? Because obviously it's got to work when it's needed. I'm just wondering, what is the age-related time of these and the maintenance costs?
Yeah, I can answer that one. Thanks very much for your question. We have a robust service plan in place for all our appliances through the organisation, and as you can imagine, they're very well looked after, and they have daily checks, twice daily, some of them. And specifically the height situation, it's tested as per legal obligation. So Lolar testing, for example, it's rigorously tested through legal compliance. There is no specific lifespan. We wouldn't put a specific lifespan because some appliances through the organisation are used a lot, some are used not so much. So the ones that are used not so much, the life expectancy would be longer. But what we also do is rotate those through the organisation as well to make sure we've got an even spread and get our asset to work more for us and make it last longer. So to answer your question, the life expectancy of that cart would be more than the life expectancy I'm expecting it to be replaced. I would expect it to last for a lot longer than that. It's just that the newer appliances we're bringing in are dedicated height, are a newer, more robust and flexible appliance. I have no qualms about the CARP staying in place at the moment, and the regime we've got in place for monitoring and reviewing that. And of course, that'll be continued through the lifespan of the vehicle. If that needs to be reviewed within the 2 years that I'm expecting that to be replaced, then we would take that back in and make a strategic decision on how we would replace that, just like it's been done with the other one, meaning that we couldn't replace the one in Perth. That came unforeseen circumstances. So yeah, robust checks, legal compliance, and I wouldn't anticipate any issues within the timescales we're expecting it to be replaced.
Marvellous. Thank you for that. Thank you for the assurance of that. Convener, somebody's coming behind me with a question. I'm happy to hold back for a moment.
Thank you. Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, my question relates to the RTCs. You mentioned that you worked with the Road Safety Partnership. There's a couple of aspects to this. Firstly, I'd be quite interested to see where you've recommended that improvements have been done. And I think it'd be useful if the committee could be provided with a sort of summary of where you've asked for road traffic accident areas to be improved. And the other part of the question is, how quickly do you see the improvements being done to those areas where you think there needs to be changes to the road conditions to make it safe?
Well, certainly your first point, I'm more than happy to either get the, whether it be a written paper to you or an update in relation to the safety partnership and what they're identifying as improvements moving forward. There's not a problem with that. In relation to, I dare say, kind of pinch points or areas of improvement, I've not got anything to hand from that committee, so that is something that, or from that forum, so that is something that I could provide off table as well, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, that would be helpful. Thank you.
And I'm sure Councillor Cuthbert's aware that our road safety teams take incidents as part of their calculation and priority process. It makes it wider for the public to understand that happens as well.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm just aware that the road safety team are really under pressure with the parking ban and the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I'm just curious to see just how quickly this is being dealt with, because obviously if you've got a dangerous area, it needs to be improved. So how quickly are we doing it?
Thank you very much. Councillor Braun, I'll take your second question now.
Thanks, Convener. It comes back to the road traffic collisions as well. Obviously, we work with the Road Safety Partnership. I understand that, and obviously it all helps. But obviously, these are accidents, obviously, and I've always been a bit concerned these appearing in the statistics because I don't know how you can control them. But I mean, obviously, there are outside factors that cause these accidents, such as the weather, and I'm wondering how much of that is a contributory factor in these numbers, rather than people being just bad driving. It's just literally something that you can't foresee.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a whole number of factors that contribute towards RTCs and ultimately the severity of RTCs as well. Obviously, within our urban road networks, the chances of having seriously injured casualties and fatalities is greatly reduced on, whether it be your A, B roads and your dual carriageway motorway networks as well. So all that is considered by the partnership. Also road engineering elements, whether it be lighting, whether it be the elements that surround the A9 with going from dual to single carriageway back to dual, and these elements are all considered as well. We, as a fire and rescue service, obviously only hold the data of the incidents that we attend. Obviously, there is a large number of RTCs where there doesn't need to be extrication or safety measures put in place, so we aren't mobilised. So that's where the partnerships is really important, because whether it be motorcycles, whether it be pedestrians, it would be the police that would probably pull together that information and make sure that the partnership is considering that wide range of RTCs and what is the contributing factors. And then ultimately, whether it be improvements, whether it be initiatives, that's where that multi-agency approach kicks in. And clearly priorities, finance, and there's a whole range of other factors that need to be considered as to how we can make these improvements moving forward.
Thanks for that. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much. And our last question, Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Convener. I wanted to go back to the accidental dwelling fires, because the trend in Perth and Kinross seems to be in the opposite direction to what's happening nationally in Scotland, with accidental dwelling fires reaching a kind of all-time low since I think about 2010. So I'm wondering whether it is something to do with our approach to home fire safety visits or other preventative steps. I've got a feeling that we were really early adopters and demonstrated best practice in home fire safety visits. So there may be an element that the rest of Scotland's catching up with us, but it still looks like the trend for our statistics is going in the wrong direction. And what do we need to do to turn that round? And is there a piece of work that needs to be done to look at that more closely?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I suppose part of that is where we have reviewed our home fire safety visit process and are looking to make improvements, as Brian covered at the start there, to make sure that we are getting the right people being referred to us. It's not the worried well that we're going out and doing home fire safety visits, so it's more that quality visit rather than the quantitative type approach to home fire safety visits. Obviously 22-23 was one of these kind of drops, which is between 21 been a bit of a spike in 24-25. So yeah, our community action teams are constantly looking at trends, identifying if we have got the right referral processes in place, doing refresher training for those that are referring as well, so that they are identifying those most at risk, engaging with care service providers to ensure that fire is captured within the risk assessments, engaging with discharge teams from hospitals to make sure that we are getting signposted to those that are being discharged that are vulnerable. So we are constantly looking at current data, previous data at a national level and at a local level to see where we can make these improvements. I suppose an element of context around it, and I covered it when I did an overview of Priority 1. Although the number's high, the 67 accidental dwelling fires being 61% of our annual target, when you break it down, there's not many that have actually been significant incidents. And as such, there's 30 incidents where we didn't have to take any action. And then obviously a further 20 incidents where it was perhaps moving a pot off a stove sort of thing. So yeah, the number can be quite significant, but if we get down into the detail of where we actually had to take any action, that's greatly reduced. But yeah, further work and ongoing work is always being undertaken in relation to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for answering councillors' questions. I hope you stay around for the police report as well, just in case there's any crossover with the questions. You would never know what's coming down the road. Can I ask members to agree this report? Thank you very much. Move on to item 6 on the agenda, the Pethington North Local Police Area Mid-Year Performance Report. Greg Burns, the commander, will be presenting this, but in the chamber we also have Chief Superintendent Nicola Russell and Inspector Stephen Gray. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Convener. Just before I hand over to Greg to take us through the report, I'll just highlight some strategic directions for Police Scotland. Members will be aware that the Chief Constable recently launched the 2030 vision and 3-year plan for Police Scotland, which has 4 specific focuses for us, those being safer communities, supported victims, less crime and a thriving workforce. So locally, I'll look to identify how we address that in order to deliver the plan on behalf of the organisation. Some of the key points, just for members' awareness, that exist within that 3-year plan are our review into our estates and an overarching master plan to ensure that the locations where we have officers located are fit for purpose and of an appropriate size and facility, as well as a review into local policing service delivery, which is around our operating model and what that means for policing across Scotland to ensure that we can deliver against reducing crime and having safer communities. I'm also delighted to announce that the commitment of the rollout of body-worn video to Police Scotland will see Tayside Division being the first division to have that in the spring 2025, and we're working really hard internally with stakeholders and external stakeholders to ensure the infrastructure is all in place so that officers can be trained and out on the ground with that additional device and support mechanism. Just lastly, before I hand over to Greg, you'll have hopefully seen in the media this week that the staff survey that was run over the summer concluded, and we've had over 11,000 staff and officers complete that survey. The Chief's committed to an annual survey, which will allow us to continue to hear the views and voices from our workforce to identify the areas that we need to improve in. And again, locally, I'll work hard with the command team to identify areas and priorities where we can make progress to ensure that our staff feel valued and supported in order to deliver for our communities. So thank you so much, Convener. Likewise, I'll take questions at the end, but I'll hand over to Greg now, who will take you through the mid-year report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Convener, for the introduction, and good morning to everyone. I trust you've had an opportunity to review the mid-year report, which covers the period 1st April 2024 to the 30th September 2024. Page 6, the performance on a page, provides an overview of the performance. However, I will now provide some further contextual information, after which Chief Superintendent Russell, Inspector Gray and myself would be happy to answer questions. Broadly speaking, Perth and Kinross remains lower than the national averages, and we continue to work with partners to ensure it remains a safe place to work, live and visit. Disorder and antisocial behaviour first. There's been a slight increase of reported antisocial incidents recorded for the period under review. However, Perth and Kinross remain significantly lower than the 5-year average. Positively, vandalism has significantly reduced for the period under review. There has been an increase in instances of fire raising. However, we have seen a significant increase in fire raising detection rates, which is really positive. Violent crime. In terms of violent crime, we have seen a decrease in the number of serious assaults recorded, with 7 less crimes compared to the same period last year. Again, positively, we also saw a reduction in the serious assaults within HMP Perth. This is 4 less than the same period last year. We continue our partnership to work with HMP to prevent violence. Detection rates for serious assaults are positive, with all currently detected for the period under review. Robberies have slightly increased by 2 crimes compared to the previous year, with over 50% detected. However, a number of investigations are still ongoing, and as such, I would expect this number to improve going forward. Analysis of these crimes show a significant number of the undetected robberies relate to incidents within domestic relationships, often with limited witnesses, which can make it exceptionally difficult to detect. Common assaults have risen compared with the previous year. However, positively, the detection rate has also increased. Moving on to public protection, there have been 40 rapes recorded during the reporting period, which is an increase of 14 compared to the previous year. The detection rate for rape has decreased to 37.5. However, the number of these crimes, again, remain under active investigation by special units, and it's anticipated our performance in this area will improve once these investigations are concluded. In relation to domestic abuse, we have seen an increase of 22 crimes over the last year, and although detection rates are slightly lower than last year, they remain above the 5-year average. Overall, in terms of sexual offences, we have seen a slight increase of 5.1%. However, positively, we've seen a reduction of 26% in sexual assaults. There are 2 human trafficking crimes recorded during the reporting period. However, one of which was reported in Perth but happened in England. The other was assessed as a not crime following an inquiry. So we have no human trafficking crimes in Perth and Kinross. Moving on to road safety, and this is brought across with the fire service. We've recorded 6 adult fatalities under the period under review. A breakdown of them, which will answer the previous question, was first one being 17th of the 5th, happened in the 822 at Amalree. It was a motorcyclist, and it was a fault by the motorcyclist. And the 28th of the 5th, we had an A9 Perth bypass where a pedestrian was struck with a vehicle. On the 14th of the 6th, on the 823 Gleneagles, with 2 fatality RTC with a father and daughter. We then had on the 23rd of the 6th, the A9 at Calvin, a motorcyclist. Again, that was a non-fault with a foreign driver on the wrong side of the road. And lastly, recently we had the incident on the B9099 at Stanley, which was a 1-vehicle RTC, which saw the death of a female. All these incidents were investigated by our Divisional Road Policing Unit under the supervision of a qualified SIO and collision investigator. Serious injury road traffic collisions have also increased from 37 to 57, or positively seen a 23% reduction in the number of slight injury RTCs. We continue to see a marked reduction in the number of speeding offences recorded. While this is a positive trend that suggests engagement and enforcement activity are having a positive impact on driver behaviour, it's still too early to suggest a definite societal change. A number of other factors, including increased costs, improved travel options, may also have a part to play in this. I'm conscious speeding remains a key concern for members of our local communities, and I can provide assurance that our levels of activity in relation to enforcement remain high. Our Divisional Road Policing Unit continue to proactively patrol priority routes, and the observation of officers are that the majority of road users are abiding by the speed limits. Our Divisional Road Policing Unit also supports local policing colleagues with speed checks in areas where complaints have been received from residents and participate in local multi-agency road safety forum along with Community Safety and Scottish Fire and Rescue. Finally, moving on to acquisitive crime. Domestic housebreaking are broadly similar relation to their occurrence rate and detection rates. Commercial housebreaking has increased compared to the same period last year. However, we have managed to detect a significant proportion of these crimes, and we have seen a 25% increase in detection rates, which is extremely positive. Theft of motor vehicles has increased by 5 crimes. North Muirton, Almonbank and Pitlochry areas have all been identified as hotspots, which reflects in the increased police visibility in these areas. We've seen a rise in motor vehicle crime in general terms, with thefts from insecure vehicles accounting for 18 extra crime year on year. We continue with crime prevention campaigns to try and combat this opportune offending. Again, in this forum, I would urge to cascade the message of crime prevention basics to your communities in a bid to improve these statistics. Perth and Kinross continues to see a disproportionate impact from non-resident offenders in relation to acquisitive crime. For the period under review, several travelling criminals have been detected for offences in Perth and Kinross and across Tayside. Albeit out with the reporting period, 2 Dundee nominals have recently been charged with multiple offences relating to Perth and Kinross. Although travelling criminals pose challenges, we utilise internal and external partners to combat them, sharing information and intelligence across borders and utilising joint resources for patrols, including response and community officers, road policing officers, CID and community wardens. Shoplifting saw a slight increase of 5 extra crimes this year. We continue to engage with retailers, providing advice and promoting engagement. Perth and Kinross figures remain significantly below the national levels. The number of fraud inquiries have dropped by 39, which is the lowest it's been for 4 years. This is coupled with a slight increase in the detection rate, which has increased by 10% to 18%. Again, the highest it's been for 4 years. The decrease in the number of crimes goes against over the recent years, and it's again about prevention messaging, which is really positive. That concludes the summation of the report at this point. Chief Superintendent, Inspector Gray and myself are now happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Greg. Do we have any questions? Hayley Williamson.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I have a number of questions, but I'll wait and see what happens. But the first question is about domestic abuse, and I'm wondering if those figures are for the population of Perth and Kinross, or whether they actually include things like people who are visitors to the area where the mask slips and they decide to kick off in, say, a hotel or a campsite or wherever.
Thanks so much for that question, Councillor. Yeah, you're right. These are crimes that have been committed in Perth and Kinross, so not necessarily by people that live here, but they've been recorded within the geography. I don't have the breakdown of that for you, but if it's a statistic that you're interested in, we could certainly take that away and try and break that down further. But you're right, as it's a popular destination for people that travel to the area, we're called on occasion to incidents and then record them.
Bailey McLaren for your first question.
Thank you. Yeah, my question's about the rural crime, the parks partnership. I just wonder if you could provide a little bit more information surrounding that. How, what's the rural crime horizon looking like? Where are we? Have we got a rise or is it static? Just to get a little bit more of a flavour of where it's going. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. As I detailed in the update there, I suppose the problem of living in such a beautiful area is it's remote, it's got lots of lovely scenery, and as a result, it's very remote locations which are sometimes easily targeted, as we've discussed, with offenders basically visiting the area, opportunists. Perth and Kinross is a very central point. It's easily, obviously, commutable through. So this is where the problem lies. In respect of the crime just now, We put patrols based on the crime statistics. We use analysts to determine where the hotspots are, and as a result, we'll set up points using road policing officers, community officers, CID to obviously deter and obviously detect the crimes that are going ahead here. Very positive, as I said. We've detected 2 nominals from Dundee, which have been really busy in the Perth and Kinross area. So we generally find when we detect the person's response in the crime at that point in time. So it's positive just now. And again, we've detected a number of really quite prolific offenders within the Perth and Kinross area, which is positive. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm aware that the fly tipping concerns, due to our officer, we're managing to make a little bit of a sort of dent in that as well. So it's all sounding positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bailey Ahern, you're the hat trick this time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. My question is regarding speeding and 20-mile-an-hour zones. So as elected members, we have recently had, all of us, discussions with roads, and large areas have built up and residential areas are going to become 20-mile-an-hour zones. Is this a speed limit that's going to be monitored and action taken against drivers breaking 20-mile-an-hour limit? Because I don't think it's currently happening at the moment. And I just wonder if it's large areas, and I believe it's been, this has come down from the Scottish Government, so it's going to come across the country. And is it going to be a speed limit that's going to be enforced by the police? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Obviously, following COVID, we had a number of 20-mile-an-hour zones which came across the Perth and Kinross area. I think it's 48 across the Tayside area. Currently, we don't patrol or carry out speeding on the 20-mile-an-hour zones unless there's another hazard there, for example, a school or another area. The 20-mile-an-hour zones are designed to slow people down with traffic furniture, with the use of engineering, with obviously, I suppose, proactive policing there as well. So given the fact there's going to be so many of them across the country, it's very difficult to patrol them all. But certainly, if we've identified an issue in respect of a hotspot, or there's been accidents there or several complaints, we will certainly look at it, but not as a matter of course. We won't be looking at it. But so I hope that answers your question.
Councillor, I'll maybe just give you some additional context. It's one rightly that's raised across all scrutinies in Tayside around our activity in 20-mile-an-hour zones. The Scottish Government was really clear around the rationale for the inception of them to change driver and rider behaviour, so that actually people would slow down themselves without the necessity of police officers standing there doing speeding patrols. But I guess just to add on to Greg's point, if there's a specific hotspot or an area where there's concerns, then we absolutely will look at that, and it just wouldn't necessarily form part of our standard matrix of patrols. That doesn't mean, for the avoidance of doubt, that police officers won't drive through 20-mile-an-hour limit zones. Of course they will, by virtue of just daily activity, which of course, as we're all aware, just by visibility reduces offending. So we will continue to do that, and we'll actively work, as the Fire and Rescue Service said, across the partnership around road safety to identify areas or issues in key hotspots and deal with those as a partnership.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I'm just taking Ward 12, for example. The entire ward, apart, I think, from 2 roads, will become 20-mile-an-hour, which is a huge increase on the zones we've got at the moment, which tend to be around schools. So yeah, we'll just have to look once that's introduced and see what the impact is. Thank you.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. I'm actually questioning that it's page 9 of the report, but page 41 of our pack. It's to do with the contraband going into prisons. I was in London yesterday and watching the news down there, and one of the things that are great concerns now is the use of drones to take contraband into prisons. And the big fear, of course, is that it won't just be drugs or cigarettes or whatever, but it could be a gun going in. And my question was, is that a problem we have at Perth? And secondly, what do we think we could do to stop that? Funny enough, they highlighted Guernsey prison have introduced a frequency generator around the perimeter, which sends up a 100-meter high interference shield, I suppose you want to call it that, which drones can't go through. So my question is, do we have that problem up here? And have we any thoughts on how we could stop it if it is?
Thank you for the question. I'll pick that one up. So, as it says in the report, we work with the partners within the prison service to proactively target anybody who's trying to bring in items to the prison. We do see similar issues in Perth as we do across the country, which is to be expected because the people who are within Perth aren't just from our area, they come from across the country and have links into the various areas. So, you know, the type of things that we see coming in are no different. There are issues with drones, drugs, phones, all sorts. And we do have an officer within our community team in Perth who works very closely, dedicated to working closely with the prisons. And throughout the year, what they do is they run initiatives alongside partner agencies, road traffic, are involved, various people from within the police, as well as the prison service. And what they'll do is they'll do as we did earlier last week, was we had one day where it was plain clothes. We had people in the prison waiting in the waiting room, searching people, detecting crime inside the prison. And the next day we had a more overt police operation where we were out in uniform targeting people in that respect. And, you know, I think working with partners, we're willing to look at any new technology that we can, which will deter criminals, as is always the case. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor.
If I can come back, convener, this I appreciate what you're saying, but are the drones now causing a problem? And I say the other suggestion that was being done, I'm not sure how it is in Perth, but many of the prisons down south now have perspex windows, which apparently prisons are burning through with elements from a kettle. So they can get their hands through and obviously pick up what's coming through. And one of the suggestions was just to have like a netting across the windows so that can't happen. But I just wonder, is the drone a problem, and are we looking at combating it? I know you mentioned about searching people coming to prison, that's one thing. But are these drones going to potentially become more of a problem?
It's becoming more of a problem in respect of it's a new technology. However, what I would say is that, you know, we don't see it happening all of the time. It's difficult. I've not got the figures to hand, and we can maybe look to provide that at a later date. And as I say, we do work with partners to try and combat new technologies all the time.
Yeah, thanks, convener.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, convener. Page 23 of the report refers to the challenges in relation to both the increased occurrence of reported rape and the decrease in detection that we see on page 6 of the report. So I wanted to ask, how does the staffing and composition and level of resource within the Divisional Rape Investigation Unit compare to other divisions, and how is the National Rape Task Force tasked to support divisions? Does it relate to the rate of recorded crimes of rape that we're experiencing?
Thanks for your question, Councillor. I'll answer that. Yeah, so across the division, I've got resources attached to a number of different specialist areas, one being sexual crime, both historic and recent crime. Currently, we have a number of trained SIOs within the cadre who are trained senior investigating officers and have an approach to all significant incidents, and specifically rape and sexual crime, where they're trained to ensure a thorough and efficient investigation. I can't answer for the proportion of staff across other divisions. I know what I've got in my division, and fundamentally I have regular conversations across my senior management team the Detective Chief Inspectors and the Detective Superintendent around our need to flex and adapt resource. And of course, it's within my gift to move people across the division if we require additional support. Currently, I'm satisfied with the numbers that we have in that environment, and as I said, we are in a position where I can move resource if we do see trends and fluctuations. In terms of the National Rape Task Force, so we are very well situated across Tayside for national support in terms of divisions within Police Scotland, one of those being officers in the National Rape Task Force. So in essence, what happens is if we have a significant increase or significant crimes, then we can make a request into the national team for support. We see that in terms of allocation sometimes of SIOs or indeed trained investigators to help with complex cases. So that's ongoing. It happens on a regular basis. And actually, we're really fortunate with the support that we get from all the national teams across Tayside. Of course, you know, we see a rise in the statistics around rape within the stats for the mid-year report. And I absolutely understand there can be concerns in relation to that, especially given the detection rates. As Greg's commented on, a lot of those are active investigations. We would look to see that increase as the course of the year progresses. But there's also something fundamentally about creating a safe environment and encouraging victims to report sexual crime. So it is difficult to differentiate, but we've do view those figures as positively as you can do, because actually we wouldn't want any, that victims feel supported in order to report those offences to the police. We fundamentally have much more to do in that space. And convener, I would like to offer maybe one of the thematic sessions in the future, a bit of a focus around rape and sexual crime, where I could actually bring our Detective Chief Inspector and representative from the National Rape Task Force along, if that's something that the committee would find of interest.
Thanks, Convener. I appreciate the response, and I think the thematic session would be very useful.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mayor.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask a question related to the serious assaults, and I see there's been a small decrease in those in HMP Perth. Are those do those assaults and serious assaults within the prison population correlate with how many people are actually in the prison at any one time? Thank you.
Thanks so much for your question. No's the short answer. So given the population and the volume of people in the prison, the numbers actually are a lot less than you might think of in terms of head of population and that we might see in the community. But we police the prison as a community, and I think that's really important to consider, is the fact that in order to prevent these offences, we need to ensure that we've got appropriate prevention messaging, that we're working closely with the prison in order to identify signs or issues that might see a spike. And of course, it's really challenging because we don't patrol the prison. But in answer to your question, no, in terms of the actual scale of numbers and the wider sort of population, they are relatively low. We are really pleased to see a decrease in those, of course. And again, like all of these statistics, they're all too many, is the reality. Members will be aware of the change in recordings to assaults and serious assaults a number of years ago, whereby we now record anything that requires glue or stitches or paper stitches as a serious assault. So there is some context behind that, just to reassure you that these are not all serious in the terminology that we might think. But again, we can bring some more breakdown in relation to that if it's required, but hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCall for your first question.
Thank you very much, Convener, and thank you, officers, for your report. My question really is around rape and sexual crime and the increase in recording. I think in previous years, the part of the explanation was that more people were coming forward. So I'd quite like to get some sense if that's still the case. But also related to this and the numbers, is as part of, and it's on page 11 of our pack, you provided an update to actions raised at previous meetings that included the age demographic of individuals reporting sexual assault and rape. And I was quite shocked to see that about a third of these reports are under 16s. And I'm just wondering if that's an increase in people coming forward, or whether that's been fairly consistent over the past few years. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that question, Councillor. Yeah, so just probably to expand on my earlier input, yes, we do see the increase as a positive one around victims coming forward and being supported to report to us. It is difficult to differentiate some of that in terms of the statistics, as you would imagine, but it is work that we continue to do with victims around how they felt throughout the investigation. And I think that's important also to recognise when we speak about detection rates, because sometimes we can't detect these offences because actually they don't tend to be witnessed crimes. So you're looking for sort of additional evidence or support that might help with the Crown. But the more important statistic is where victims feel supported by the police or support agencies. And of course, sometimes that can be a challenge to obtain. We did provide the breakdown of the numbers, and I think what's important around this is actually victims under the age of 16 are unable to consent, and therefore it's classified as a rape. So where we might see some challenges with underage sex, where predominantly females feel that they can consent legally, they're not able to do so, and actually that has an impact in terms of those statistics. We haven't seen a specific change in the numbers that's highlighted an additional amount. But what we have seen is that specifically young women and girls are much more confident in coming forward to the police to report such offences now. And again, we'll monitor that to see if there's a trend or an issue around age demographic, and we'll continue to work with partners around education and support for young people that might be victims of sexual crime.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you once again, convener. My question relates to drugs. I noticed here in the table here, we've got drink drugs labelled in the same box. I find that it's almost an epidemic now, and when I even walk down my own village, I can smell it off vans, cars going past. Do people report drug drivers as much as they report drink drivers? And if they are convicted, is it an automatic ban? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And in answer to your question, yes, we do get reports from members of the public about both drink and drugs through intelligence, through actually just people like yourself smelling, the drugs. It's very, very pungent. And as a result, report that, and we'll hopefully try and get that person stopped. Slightly differs in the process with the drinking drugs, because obviously with the drinking the alcohol, once we stop somebody, we carry out the breath test. We then take them to the certified machine, which gives us an instant answer in respect of blood levels and of alcohol. However, with drugs, once we do the wipe, albeit it wipes for a number of substances, cannabis and cocaine, it will give us an instant indication of what the person's got in their system. We then have to send that for analysis. That analysis can take up to 9 months to come back. So as a result, that period of time, the person will be released until such times as it's come back. We will test for a number of other substances in the blood at that point in time. And only then, once we have the report back, it will be then reported to the Procurator Fiscal, where we take it for consideration. If it's found to be above the levels that are obviously prescribed, there will be an automatic ban. However, if they've been convicted previously, that ban may be increased, the same as it will be with drinking drugs. But as you say, it is very prevalent problem just now, and it's one of our focuses in respect of the Fatal Five, to get folk obviously off the road with drinking drugs, and obviously our road policing unit and our colleagues work with partners. We do this on a daily basis. It's part of normal business.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Stewart, for your first question. The others are second questions.
Thank you very much, convener. I've got two related questions. I don't know if you. Okay. So first of all, on page 6 of your report, It's about the speeding offences running at 151, but the 5-year average being nearly 900, which suggests we're currently running at a sixth of the 5-year average. I don't see any narrative later on in the report sort of describing that difference, and I just wondered if you could explain why there's a huge step shift.
Thanks so much for that, Councillor. Yeah, I can. So the 5-year average obviously is across the course of the year. This is a mid-year report, so we haven't concluded the year yet. So we would expect for the numbers to increase over the course of the full year. And of course, when we come back to report for 2024, we'll see the correlation between the 5-year average. However, noting that we're already halfway through the year and we're sat at 151, we wouldn't expect to be in and around that 894. So Chief Inspector Burns spoke briefly about it in his introduction in terms of that reduction of numbers. This is not because we've stopped focusing on speeding, not at all. It's one of the fatal fives that we look at in support with our roads policing colleagues. But actually what we would like to hope is that this is a change in driver and rider behaviour, and people actually are taking cognizance to the speed limits. There's also that tangible link to 20-mile-an-hour zones that we've spoken about already. But again, we will see how that plays throughout the year. I guess probably linked to that and the previous question around drink and drug driving is we're away to move into the festive period, and Police Scotland will launch our campaign around drink driving from the 1st of December. So we will continue to do enhanced patrols and deal with driver and rider behaviour as well as tackling criminality. So there's not a change in how we've approached. It is the hope, if I'm honest, that people just actually are taking cognizance of the law, which would make all of our jobs easier. And then we will give you an update as we come to the conclusion of the year with the statistics.
Thank you very much for that. You did mention that, or in the introduction, it was mentioned that speeding is obviously a key cause of concern for our residents in our communities. With the upcoming opening next spring of the Crosstail Link Road and the associated increase in both the volume and size/weight of vehicles that's anticipated coming down the A93 and particularly the A94, I wondered whether you would be carrying out more speed or preparing to sort of schedule in more speed checks associated with that opening.
Yeah, thank you for your question. What I will say is the new road is going to be really positive opening. It's going to alleviate a lot of traffic within the local centre, which is going to be positive for the community. Throughout the whole build of the road, we've linked in with partners in respect to speeding, speed limits, enforcement, etc., etc. So we're well aware of what the roads looks like, where I suppose the spots are going to be in respect to that. We're well aware, and it's been considered that some of the younger drivers, maybe antisocial drivers, may use it as some sort of route round there. So that's in our plans at this point in time, and there is a plan going forward when it does open that we will monitor it closely, as we did with the 40s and the A9 going northwards. And we're working with the safety camera unit as well in respect to that, and that normally gets the desired effect once the camera van's sitting there. But yeah, no, we're taking that into our plans going forward for that road.
Thank you. Councillor Cuthbert for your first question.
Thank you, Convener. My question relates to RTCs. I note on page 6 in your summary of the statistics, you don't actually mention the number of RTCs attended. I think it would be quite useful to have that included. I'm quite interested, as I was with the Fire and Rescue Service, to see where you're getting these RTCs and what improvements are being put to the Road Safety Partnership and how quickly they're being delivered. I don't know if you can bring back a report at some point to indicate the same thing I've asked for from the Fire and Rescue Service. But I was just wondering, is there a reason why that's not included?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor. Yeah, we can have that included. It's not one of the designated statistics that's provided in the breakdown of the table, but of course what we're trying to do here is ensure local context and provide the details that are required for the committee to review. So we'll take that away. We'll provide a breakdown of the RTCs and the locations. We did that for this report just out of session for the committee, and likewise it's already been addressed in terms of that partnership paper. So of course we will work closely with Scottish Fire and Rescue to ensure that all the details within that report.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCall for your second question.
Thank you. My second question is on which one? Drug driving issue. I'm just wondering what capacity and technology we have to detect drugs and perpetrators' systems, and whether or not we do the same detection when we're called to incidents of perhaps assault or public disturbance, and if there's any statistics on where drugs is a contributory factor in those circumstances. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question there. As I touched on earlier on, obviously the detection of drug driving is one that's causes great concern, as it's in the Fatal Five in respect of our priorities. We rely on people reporting to us to get that information. We rely on a smell, a scent, you know, the bottom line of manner of driving, how we see people on the roads. As a result, once we do that and we stop a person for that and we suspect drugs, we're within law we can require them to provide a drug wipe, which is a piece of technology that was brought in a number of years ago now, which picks up a number of drugs in the system. However, if the drug wipe comes back negative at that point in time, we still feel there's impairment at that point in time, we can arrest the person and take them back to a police station, where we can go through a number of other tests, which include a urine test and a blood test, which will obviously get that desired result. What we have to be very careful of is that there's a number of conditions, you know, that medically, when people are driving, that look like impairment, so we have to be alive to that, as it were. But the technology is there in respect to drug wipes. We've got the alcohol detection, obviously the breath test side of the road, which is all very positive, and that obviously helps us detect offenders on there and bring them to justice.
And do we do the same?
Yeah, sorry, no, you're okay, my fault. I'll just answer that second part of your question. No, we don't do that to members of the public that are involved in, for instance, a violent offence, because we don't have the power to do it. What we do is we record whether drink or drugs has played a factor, and then that becomes an aggravator within our crime statistics. So that's highlighted in terms of officers' awareness, but also then when individuals are brought into custody, we would record whether they were under the influence of drink or drugs. It then forms part of the prosecution report that goes to the Crown for consideration. So it's all documented, but no, we've not quite got to the stage yet where we're swabbing people in the town centre. But of course, if there's driving offences, then we've got that enhanced capability, which is extremely welcomed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mayor, do you have a second question? No, that's Bailey Williamson.
Thank you. My question isn't about crime in this instance. It's about the Mountain Rescue team, and given we're approaching the hard winter, I was wondering if consideration has been to doing a road show with Paul Morgan and the Mountain Rescue team to advise people on mountain safety, or even do a podcast or a video that can be circulated.
Thanks for that question, and a really crucial skill set that Paul and the team have, which you're aware of, Councillor. So Paul has done a number of proactive sessions across the county and continues to do so. I will link into it with him to see what his plans are moving in towards the sort of more significant winter period, and of course be really happy to support Paul and the team as to how we might ensure education. It does form part of our comms strategy across the division, decision in terms of winter preparedness and ensuring people are being safe. And of course, that goes alongside the various different weather warnings for which we obviously were recently impacted at the weekend for. We do try and ensure that messaging is out so that people can make informed decisions based on potential risk, and ensure that they're not putting themselves at risk, and then in turn fundamentally police officers or other blue light services. So I'll liaise with Paul. We'll establish what his plans are moving into the kind of heart of the winter, and we'll come back to you with that if that's okay, Councillor.
Which was extremely good. Yes, I don't think you were a member of the committee at the time, but I think it's valid that with the risk of winter coming up, that the reinforcement of safety in the mountains is really important.
Could I just say he came to Blair Athol Primary School earlier on in the summer, September, I think it was, and he was actually brilliant. He really was, and with the young kids offering some really good useful tips.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braun for your second question.
Thanks, Convener. This comes back to a question of vandalism. Having reports coming through of teenagers turning up at empty buildings in the past, just turning up sporadically. Let's break in and see what damage we can do. But having reports now they're turning up balaclavas with necessary equipment, crowbars, big screwdrivers, whatever, determined to break into these properties and cause as much damage as they possibly can. Obviously, it's very intimidating for local neighbours. So I'm just wondering, is this a trend we've started to see happening, or is it perhaps just related to our ward only?
Thanks for that. I'll pick that one up. So I don't think we're starting to see a wider trend in relation to children breaking into these premises. Obviously, they're not silly, and they will take all efforts or make all efforts that they can to try and cover their faces in the hope that we won't be able to identify them. And that's where we kind of rely on the local public and the community to help us in trying to identify those involved. I suppose, from our point of view, the biggest part of that is engagement and trying the prevention. So we work alongside partners and we do lots of collaborative work with Safer Communities. The council's got a great team in place at the moment who we work with in patrolling these areas. And that's very much a joint approach that we do that alongside them. And we've got Operation Stung as well, which is a Friday and Saturday sort of early evening, where we'll have dedicated officers and almost doubling up with the community safety wardens for the specific areas where there are issues. I'm aware of recent, incidents where phones have been left at the locus, and we take them, but again, it's very difficult to take evidence from these things because I suppose you need a really high bar to be able to be that intrusive to get into people's phones. So I'm aware of that, and it was raised at one of the previous meetings, how we can't take action on that. We do try whatever we can, and we do, we try to take any evidence that we can to detect these things, but we are very reliant on the community and the local community, whether that be parents of these people, to know where their kids are, to try and get these things detected. But I think, as I say, the biggest thing for us is just that proactive work in that space, working with schools, the community safety wardens, and other agencies to try and be proactive in that space. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey, is that okay, Bob?
There's a bit delay getting the microphone unmuted. No, that's fine for that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bailey McLaren for your second question.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, my question is actually related to something that's we're becoming more aware of, that's increasing, cybercrime, and particularly financial cybercrime. Could you maybe give us more of a picture on that? Are you seeing that? Are you investigating more crimes? I mean, we've got examples of some really quite high value financial crime. So what is there a sort of process that's being created around that increase in this type of crime? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Councillor. We've actually seen a marked reduction in fraud across Perth and Kinross. So when you look at the stats on table 6, we see a 19.5% reduction from year to date, and that's where cybercrime would be recorded. Of course, you know, there's a number of reasons for that. People have become just a bit more aware around scams and cyber criminals. It's taken a little bit of time for people to get up to speed with some of these sorts of things, and you know, that's no slant on the public. We've all, including myself, had those emails and text messages that we've thought are legitimate, and it's only once you do a little bit of digging that you realise they're not. We continue to support across Perth and Kinross and Tayside around prevention messaging. We support in terms of action against fraud, and of course there is a threshold in terms of when it comes to the police. So there are a number of investigations that wouldn't necessarily come to us because they would go to action fraud in the first instance. But we have seen a reduction across Perth and Kinross, which is really, really positive. Again, you know, there would be a plea from us through this forum and through yourselves with your communities, and that fundamentally is to try and get messages to people to not click on links, to not provide personal data when they're phoned, never to share their bank information. And of course, we work really closely with the banks around the banking protocol to support people that might be trying to take out high sums of money, which might not necessarily be cyber related, but of course are connected to fraud. So we'll continue to do that, and as technology increases, we would hope that those offences become even more reduced from our perspective. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And for our last question, Councillor McCall, if you still have a third question after all this.
I do. It's a slight follow-on to or expansion of Councillor McLaren's question around fraud. I was just wondering how much of those statistics, because although it has come down, there is an increase on the 5-year average in terms of recorded crimes. And I'm wondering whether or not that's because people are more confident about coming forward. And also if there's if you can give me some indication as to whether or not the fraud is against individuals or if it's more institutional fraud. And the final part of the question is the detection rates are quite low in comparison to other types of crime. So I'm just wondering why that is. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. And again, thanks for the follow-up question. So, yes, they are lower in terms of the 5-year average, or in terms of the increase, across the 5-year average. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, people are more confident in reporting, although having said that, it can be embarrassing to report that crime because some people feel that, you know, they shouldn't necessarily have fallen for it. But we have done a lot of work to try and encourage reporting. Technology has improved greatly in 5 years, so I also think actually people are more susceptible because they're more they can be contacted more easily in terms of mobile phones and various different internet provisions. So I think all of those will lead into that as part of a factor as to why we see the figures the way that we see them. In terms of the breakdown for companies and persons or individual persons, I don't have that to hand, but we'll take that away and come back to you. And again, as I mentioned, there is kind of thresholds around some of those. So there'll be some companies that won't ever report to the police because a little bit like shoplifting, they'll have a threshold where they don't think they should tell us, which of course, as you know, is not my position. So we'll take that away and then we'll come back with that, Councillor, as well as some of the other points, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. And if I may, I'd probably like to suggest that, you know, the Adult Protection Committee is kept updated on what you find, because they have a role to play as well in terms of prevention and awareness and support as well to those who are at risk. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I guess to provide some reassurance where we do have vulnerable victims. We have a number of processes in place to support those individuals, where we'll share information with appropriate partners. It will be considered whether it be through adult protection or wider social work support, and we'll continue to do that. So thanks for that, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for their questions. Are we happy to agree with the report?
Sorry, Convener, I did have one more question on the list, but
if it's urgent, Councillor Broad, and you think it's relevant
no,
and different, then go
I was
for it.
I was going to ask. It wasn't related to a more recent accident on the A9, but if you prefer me not to ask it, I'm happy to step back and I'll just email the police separately.
I think because that's just happened, that would probably have to happen in private session or outside. I think that would be best, Councillor Broad.
I'm happy with that, Convener. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd be happy to agree with the report. Agreed. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
As indicated in the chat, I think we will take a 5-minute recess. So we're back at about 7 minutes past, around about that time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was a good 5-minute recess there. I think my sciatica needed that stretch as well, Councillor Cuthbert. So thank you. So we're now on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the Community Payback Order Annual Return. And Arun Singh, our Strategic Lead for Children, Families and Justice, is going to introduce the report.
Thank you, Convener. I'm pleased to introduce the Community Payback Order Annual Return for 23-24. The return has been revised following discussions between Scottish Government, Social Work Scotland and Community Justice Scotland, and it now provides a broad narrative of the work undertaken in respect to community payback orders and how this relates to reducing reoffending and addressing the needs of service users and communities. During the reporting period, the service has continued to test out different approaches and implement interventions which began in the preceding year. The collaboration and partnership working with other agencies and the third sector have been central to this and allowed the service to take forward these developments. The work has been underpinned and informed by the continued commitment to trauma-informed service delivery, so staff are equipped to address the increasing needs and changing complexities of service users. The number of community payback orders imposed during the reporting period has remained similar for both supervision and the unpaid work requirement, although neither has returned to pre-pandemic levels and the length of unpaid work requirement has increased, whilst the anticipated increase in court report requests did not transpire throughout the reporting period, albeit there has been an increase since April this year. These aspects are being closely monitored with plans in place so that services can flexibly adapt to the changing demands. And this is an ongoing topic of discussion with our local courts and sheriffs, with whom the service has a very productive and positive relationship. Community justice social work, along with justice partners, have experienced some challenges during the year, with some have been nationally driven, and the ability to collectively address them locally has been made possible through the robust collaboration and relationships that exist between justice partners and the third sector. This has been pivotal in the ability for community justice social work to take forward these developments, which align with the Scottish Government policy and are supported by the Community Justice and Safety Partnership and Community Justice Scotland. Convener, I am joined today by Nicola Rogerson, who is the Service Manager for Justice Social Work, who is online, who will be happy to take any questions in respect to the report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, my question relates to early release. I'm just wondering if the news is full of stories about early release and how many prisoners are being released early. I'm just wondering, do they then get put on a CPO for the to reflect the fact that their sentence has been cut, or do they just get released straight into the community?
Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert. We were just notified quite recently in relation to early release for prisoners, the Prisoners Early Release Scotland Bill, which was introduced to the Scottish Parliament on Monday the 18th, and then obviously became legislation on the 19th. It is for short-term prisoners. In other words, that means people doing 4 years and under. Customarily, they wouldn't have come out on any kind of CPO, or they wouldn't have come out on any kind of licence. But we do have, from the pandemic time, we do have measures in place to identify very quickly. We get information from the Scottish Prison Service to identify people who are coming out on a short-term sentence that wouldn't normally be subject to unpaid worker supervision. And we do have a complex needs coordinator who will engage with them early and ensure that we can address whatever needs they require. So it then reduces the likelihood of future reoffending. Normally people would be released at the halfway point, the 50% point of their short-term sentence, but that's going to change to 40%. And as I say, we do get routinely regular information from the Scottish Prison Service about people from Perth and Kinross who are in custody.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks. On page 78 of the pack, section 7 under organisational improvements and ongoing challenges refers to the service landscape being cluttered and confusion in about which service is best to meet the needs of a person. I just wondered who's kind of responsible for decluttering that landscape?
I think that would probably sit with Community Justice Scotland and Scottish Government, Councillor Barrett. This is something which came up when we had the Angelini report, which was talking about women in the justice system and about setting up women's centres. And it looks like we're still in quite a similar situation at this time, which is now 12 years later. I think they are trying to address that, but I think things have continually moved on with obviously the burgeoning prison population and agencies trying to address that. But I think it would be more helpful if we had a coordinated approach to that. Hopefully that'll answer your question.
Yes and no, Nicola.
Yeah.
Because if it's stuff that we can't deal with, then fair enough. But if the cluttered landscape translates into confusion locally as well, you know, what is there that we can do about that? And you know, is it you, is it Aaron, you know, or is it Chris that should be leading on that? So,
I thank you, Councillor Barrett. I don't think it's so much on a local level. I think we are talking about national commissioning arrangements, which they're looking at for mentoring services, which then you'll have kind of subcontracting to other third sector providers. We have a long-standing relationship, for example, giving this as an example with Tayside Council on Alcohol for our mentoring service. So it does make things more confusing. We also have the Shine project, which was nationally commissioned, but that which is obviously mentoring services for women, which we didn't really find useful, certainly within the context of Perth and Kinross, because we had locally established relationships. So it's elements like that, which I think I'm referring to as a cluttered landscape. And also I attend Social Work Scotland Justice Standing Committee, and I'm also feeding this back through that forum as well, which they then will take and have the conversation with Scottish Government about that too.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions in the chat, so I will move the paper. The Perth and Kinross Community Payback Order Annual Return for 23-24 has highlighted how the community justice, social work and unpaid work teams have continued to develop the service and meet the growing complex needs of those in the justice service. The service has continued its investment with different approaches of service delivery, which through partnership with other agencies has served to meet the evolving needs of their service users. Although there have been some challenges, the continued strength in the delivery of community justice social work services is evidenced through its collaboration and partnership working, which is embedded in the Perth and Kinross Community Justice and Safety Partnership. This alignment and accountability between justice partners has helped to address some of the shared local challenges, resulting in activity that not only aims to reduce reoffending and potential harm to the individual, but their families, the public and the wider community. You're asked to take assurance about the work being undertaken by the Community Justice Social Work and Unpaid Work teams in respect of community payback orders in Perth and Kinross, and request the Strategic Lead of Children, Family and Justice bring forward a report regarding activity and performance of community payback orders in 12 months' time, and I'm happy to move this report. Councillor Nicole, can you second this report, please?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'm happy to second the report, and I'd also like to add my appreciation, thanks for the work of Nicola Rogers and her team in community safety, both community safety and community justice social work team, who do an excellent job. So keep up. Thank you very much. I'm happy to second the report.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on the report? I see no comments. Can we agree the recommendations set out in the report? Thank you very much. That takes us to item 8 on our agenda, which is a presentation on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Can I ask Jennifer McComish, our Safety Communities Officer, to deliver the presentation, please?
Thank you, Convener. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jennifer Middlemas and I'm the Coordinator and the Lead Officer for Violence Against Women for Perth and Kinross. 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an annual international campaign that starts officially on the 25th of November, the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, and runs until the 10th of December, Human Rights Day. The theme this year is Imagine a Scotland Without Gender-Based Violence. The theme was inspired with Imagine Community Artwork project in Dundee, where the impacts of gender-based violence were explored with groups of participants. In 2024, violence against women remains the most prevalent and pervasive human rights violation in the world. The number of countries in conflict and facing emergencies has resulted in millions more women and girls being vulnerable to gender-based violence. The UN have recently released statistics which indicate that 1 in 5 refugee or displaced women living in complex situations are estimated to have experienced sexual violence. The situation, however, closer to home is also alarming. Now, in this case, I will refer to some figures that have been provided by the Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre in Perth. From 2023 to date, 14,484 sexual crimes have been reported by Police Scotland. Within RASAC Perth and Kinross, from April 23 to the end of March 2024, 333 survivors of sexual violence engaged with the support services. 29% of survivors were under the age of 13 where their abuse had started. 26% experienced rape, 11% child sexual abuse, 11% sexual harassment, and 53% of those have never disclosed their abuse to anyone. In 21-22, figures from previous, 64,807 domestic abuse incidents were reported by Police Scotland. 81% of these cases in this instance was a woman and the perpetrator was a man. The situation, 95% of people trafficked for sexual exploitation in Europe being women, and a woman being killed every 3 days in the UK by a partner or ex-partner. To work towards eradicating violence against women and girls as a partnership, we urge leaders in the UK and throughout in Perth and Kinross to increase investment and raising awareness of the prevalence in different forms of sexual violence and stop it and prevent it from happening in the first place. We believe every effort invested in preventing violence against women is a step forward towards creating a safer and more equal and prosperous community, society and country and world. I will tell you a wee bit more now about our local programme that we have put on in relation to 16 Days of Activism. You will just see in the background there's a short slide, it's actually older statistics. However, I will be sharing at a later date newer statistics where we can get them made available. In Perth and Kinross, we've arranged a programme of events. It's our busiest yet. It started locally with our launch on Friday with Mr. Swinney. Unfortunately, we had a further event which was arranged for Saturday, which was our Universal Story and our vigil with Perth Soroptimist ladies, but due to weather that had to be cancelled. We are looking to reschedule our Universal Story of women affected by gender-based violence, and that will be getting rescheduled for our International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So if you could please put that in your diary. Week 1 has started off with training being delivered by our Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre. I also attended the UN alongside the Christian Aid ambassadors at St Matthew's Church on Monday, so they had launched the campaign of 16 days. This week we are followed by our friends at Perth Film Society in Berks Aberfeldy, who will be shown films which raise awareness of the effects of domestic abuse and sexual violence. Unfortunately, we did have our Mentors in Violence Prevention Conference booked in for this Friday, but due to speakers' commitments, we had to postpone this event. But again, I will let you know, and this will be rescheduled for May 25, and it will be widely advertised once we can confirm the details. Week 2, again, this is a newly added event to our programme. We are hosting a recreation of the University of Kansas exhibition called What Were You Wearing? It is a display of stories of experiences of sexual violence with a replica of the outfit that they were wearing at the time. The aim of this exhibition is to help people to better understand that sexual violence doesn't happen because of what someone is wearing. This victim blaming attitude is a barrier to many survivors of sexual violence accessing support or reporting the incident. On Wednesday, the 4th of December, we will host our annual Reclaim the Night March, leaving from 2 High Street in Perth. This is to show solidarity with women around the world who are living with fear and violence and demonstrate their right to walk the streets at night. We will also be hosting our seminar on human trafficking on the 5th of December. We have our annual lighting up of Perth Bridge and St John's Kirk ringing of the bells. Jean Campbell from our Sir Optimist International, as always, will have the Well Meadow in Blairgowrie decorated with ribbons and shop fronts in Blairgowrie and Alyth, and also taken part by decorating their windows to raise awareness. Today I have left, to finish off, I have left, this is on slide 3, I have left a pledge card. Now, we spoke about this at the end of the launch on Friday. I would ask that as elected members that you could take this back to your constituencies, or you would also take the opportunity to imagine a Scotland without gender-based violence. And if you could possibly take a picture, take a photograph, and please send that into the partnership, and we will ensure that's shared at a national level. But if we could keep that message going, because we also need to remember that our Perth and Kinross commitment to eradicating violence against women and girls happens 365 days a year, and we will continue to be committed to this cause. Thank you. That's a quick whirlwind.
Yes, Jennifer, it was, because your events this year are very numerous, as we can see from the emails that we've received. Do councillors have any questions for Jennifer regarding this year's events? Hayley Williamson.
Yeah, Jennifer, thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I think it's really good. I was just wondering, a year or two ago, we managed to get you up to Pitlochry to do a talk to the Rotary Club, and I was just wondering if you've had any more offers of that, or is it possible to try and get out to Rotary Clubs to try and spread the message about some of the domestic violence?
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Yes, I have been asked a few times. It's my job to go out and raise awareness as much as I can, so requests are coming in quite a lot. So again, I would ask elected members, if you wish me to come along to any of your meetings in your areas, then I'd be happy to do that. Again, Councillor Williamson, if there's any up and coming events that I could attend, then I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer. I don't have any questions for it. There's a question from Councillor McCall. Computer's acting up.
Thank you, and thank you, Jennifer, for that update. And I'm really glad that you emphasise that it's a 365 days a year activity, that although there's a focus just now. My question really is I don't know if you were in the meeting when we had the update from the Police Scotland about rape and sexual assault, and that about a third of the reported cases are of under 16s. And I know that the police do some work in schools about matters like consent, etc. But I'm just wondering, how does that link in with the work that you do more generally, and particularly in dealing with young people? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCall. Yeah, I think RASAC, Perth and Kinross the figures, there was 29% of survivors were under the age of 13 when their abuses started, so that could be historical as well. And again, within the schools and the education system, last year RASAC went out and delivered 1,700 sessions to the schools on various prevention and other issues within the prevention model. We're currently looking at within education and ourselves through the Violence Against Women Partnership, we're currently looking at a gender-based violence strategy. Now, we've never had that before, so this is really new to us, and it's very varied and very full. And it actually is quite overwhelming and positive, in fact, the amount of work that's been done within the education system and through community justice and what we're trying to achieve through the partnership. Before, we were kind of had separate strategies, so under the Public Protector, we're trying to make sure we're pulling that agenda together so that we have that information readily available, and we are actively in schools, again, throughout the year as much as we can to engage with young people. The services that are available within RASAC are really valued and well thought of. So again, confidence is growing now within survivors who are starting to report, and I think that was the recent increase we saw. And I think that pays gratitude to the services in Perth and Kinross that people feel that they're able to report in. And just for reassurance at the partnership, again, we make sure that that is within our overall strategy, that we bring all that together. So as reported on, statistics come in every partnership meeting that we're at anyway, in terms of waiting lists and number of referrals coming in. So we're keeping a close eye, and we also have updates from education sitting within that too. Don't know if that's answered your question, Councillor McCall. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. It's helpful. I was thinking more about the prevention side of it, because while I know that RASAC do deal with boys under 16 as well, but I think there's also a prevention element. And I know that, like I said, I know the police do some pieces of work, but it's, I don't know how frequently they do it. And I just think that the more we can do about prevention, as well as in supporting people who have been victims, I think it would be very worthwhile.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when I spoke to Councillor McEwen was happy that perhaps next year myself and Police Scotland come back and we do a joint presentation, and that'll look more at the overall provision within Perth and Kinross and the violence against women and girls, and how we provide the services and support around that, if that would be suitable.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mayor for a question.
Thank you, Convener. Jennifer, I just wonder if you could tell us what sort of work has been done around domestic violence which has been experienced by tourists coming to Perth and Kinross. How are you relating that to partnerships outside the area?
Thank you. That's quite a difficult one, because I think Police Scotland referred to that earlier on. A question had come in relation to visitors. I think it was from Councillor Williamson, and I think we would need to go away and look at that separately. It's how we, understand that and how we break that down a little bit more, because I guess when someone reports as domestic abuse, it's domestic abuse, and we don't really, that's how it's reported. It depends which route it's came through and what pathway it's come through as well. So I can't actually give you a figure right now, but I can speak to colleagues and I can come back to you with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, thank you. I think also, Jennifer, just picking up from what Carol's just asked you, is the work being done within the hotels to put posters behind toilet doors, etc., giving contact details that people can get access to if they do come to the area and are being domestically abused.
Yeah, we have looked at that, Councillor Williamson, because I think you and I spoke about that just last year as well. So we have the Ask for Angela campaign, which is put on doors within licensed premises, predominantly in the city centre of Perth. And again, that's someone who is, if someone's struggling for help, again, it's a campaign that we would ask people to use within the facilities. However, we spoke about using Pitlochry and Aberfeldy as part of a kind of pilot area for us in a rural locality. So again, it's something maybe we need to do a bit more work on, and I'm happy to take that proposal forward to our next partnership meeting in January when we meet.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick other question. It was about, we've got the days of action going on at the moment, and I often wonder why we can't use our bin lorries that are driving around town that have adverts on the side of them to try and promote the days of action, 16 days of action. Is that something we could look into as the Environment Service? It's probably not necessarily for yourself, Jennifer, but more for the Environment Service about getting posters on the side of bin lorries, for example.
We have inquired about that, Councillor Williamson, and it was just a little bit costly for us to fund that. So what we've done is we are on the Scenic 75 display boards in Dunkeld Road. We are also on the bus stops. We're on the PKC website on the What's On event. So it's been widely publicised, but I absolutely would look to consider it. I have asked that question this year whether we could go on the side of bin lorries, but it was just too costly. I've also approached Stagecoach too, and there was a little bit of resistance from them to begin with, but again it's back to about how you build up relationships. So they again have agreed that they would put something up for us next year, and again we're already on the bus stop, so we are trying to get it out there as widely as we can to publicise. And we're also in the city centre when we do our exhibition next week. We are in Unit 2 on the 2nd and 3rd, and we have leased that property for 3 weeks. And how it's going to work is that we're just going to hopefully keep the display up as well. So again, in quite a real prevalent area of being in the centre.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I think it's important that we stand with our communities and organisations to address the pressure issue of gender-based violence. This year's theme, Imagine a Scotland Without Violence Against Women and Girls, is both a call to action and a vision of hope. Our 16 Days of Activism events will raise awareness of the many issues surrounding abuse, equip people to recognise the signs of gender-based violence, and share resource for those affected. No one needs to suffer in silence. Help is available. If you experience any form of gender-based violence, we really do encourage you to report this, either to local authority or to the police. Come forward and gain help. That's exactly what the message that we're trying to get across. I will take further comments now on this item. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, convener, and very happy to support you in getting that important message across. I want to commend Jennifer on once again putting together a really strong programme of events for the 16 days of action against violence against women and girls. And that isn't any sort of flash in the pan. It builds on previous strong programmes. And I'm really pleased to hear that it's extending its reach into and across our council area beyond the city boundaries and through an increasing number of channels and media. I was very pleased to attend the launch of the 16 days at the concert hall, along with a considerable number of other elected members, the leader of the council and the chief executive senior officers as well, making their support visible. We have heard shocking statistics about the prevalence of gender-based violence, which only serve to emphasise the urgent need to make Perth and Kinross a safer, more equal place as part of Scotland's vision to see a Scotland without violence against women and girls. So very pleased to hear the presentation and to support the convener in getting those messages across. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barrett, and I think it's very important to also acknowledge your input into these events that we have every year as our equalities leader at the council, something that you're very enthusiastic about. I think that your input and the efforts that you go to support all these events is well acknowledged by me and by other councillors of this council. Bailey Williamson.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'd like to endorse what Councillor Barrett has just said. I personally think it's a lot of work, but I think it's very interesting that we've normalised through history how for example, Henry VIII abused his women, and that's become normalised in society. I just recently put down a book about the Kennedys and about how they've abused the women that were involved in their lives. And it's I feel we really need to look at our history and learn from it and learn the lessons of it, because we're never going to improve the future of women. It is not right that people should be abused in their own home at the end of the day. My view.
Thank you very much. And Jennifer, again, thank you very much. And thank you for all your efforts, not just today at the committee, but getting together your programme again this year. You'll soon be starting on work for next year's programme, as you've already mentioned. So again, thank you
so
very much.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We move to item 9 on our agenda now, the Community Investment Fund for 24-25. And we have Lee Haxton here, Community Planning and Policy Team Leader, to introduce this report.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. The report in front of you summarises the funding decisions made by ward panels for the 2024-25 Community Investment Fund and provides an update on the Locality Participatory Budgeting Fund, which we're due to start next week. The report itself is split into 5 main sections. Section 4 provides the background on the delivery of Community Investment Fund since 2018-19. Section 5 sets out the number of applications received in each council ward and the value of those applications. Section 6 summarises the funding decisions made by each of those ward panels, with 115 awards made totalling £326,000. Section 7 summarises some possible areas of improvement which we would need to consider if Community Investment Fund is repeated in future years. And Section 8 reiterates the timescales and the funding available for the Locality PB Fund, which, as I said, will open for bids early next month and close on the 9th of February. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Stewart, and you still thought it was
Thanks, convener. I was just wondering about outcomes. So we can see obviously the 2.4 million and over the period of time since 18-19 and the 500 projects supported, but it was just really to understand more about the outcomes that that spend has delivered and the success of the projects within, how do we do the reporting of the success of the project, or indeed otherwise of the projects that have been granted funds from the Community Investment Fund?
Okay, thank you. The monitoring of the projects is deliberately light touch. As a result of the relatively small individual investments made. I think the average Community Investment Fund award has been around £4,000. So obviously we're not expecting massive impacts from projects of that scale. What we do ask is for on a 6-monthly or a 12-monthly basis, depending upon the size of the project, an assessment of the number of people that have benefited from the project, the number of volunteers who have been involved, and an overall assessment from the applicant themselves as to the impact of the project on their community. We could, of course, ask more. We would require probably some additional resource to make that happen, but there could be improvements made for future funding rounds that would allow us to do so.
Thanks. I think I was more meaning about, so I appreciate that there's the monitoring that goes on in terms of looking for the feedback from the groups, but in terms of summarising that for elected members, in terms of, our ability to say, we think we're getting value for money, or we don't, and we want to redirect funding in future years.
So that's something that has been considered in the past. It's also something we're looking to do for next year around social value, which is not something that we've done previously. It is limited, I must say, by the staff capacity that we have for the small team that delivers these projects. We have previously done a fairly light touch report, which tries to bring to life some of these projects in a little more detail. If that's something that committee wish to see repeated in future years, we could look to start doing that again, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no other questions in the chat, so I will move the report. This report sets out how ward panels have used their SIF allocations across the communities in Perth and Kinross. This report also highlights the timescales for the locality participatory budgeting fund. This targeted at areas of need. So members in the Strathmore, Blairgowrie and the Glen, Strathern and the Perth City wards, need to encourage your groups to look for the dates and get your applications in for that funding. The SIF and PB demonstrate this council's continued commitment to supporting community empowerment and providing opportunities for local people to determine how council funds are used to support community-led initiatives. We are asked to note the funding decisions taken by the ward panels, approve the carry forward of £47,520 and 20 pence to support community projects in those wards where underspends have arisen, and note the progress made to date with the local PB funding. I'm happy to move the report. Councillor McCall, can I ask you to second the report, please?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'm very happy to second this report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments on the report? Councillor Cuthbertson.
Councillor Cuthbert. That's right. And I just wanted to say that I'm a great fan of this fund. In principle, it leverages out a whole lot of input and support locally. And I think the payback we get from the money that we invest is much greater than the money we put in. So I think because of the free hours that people give and so on, and I think when it's used for seed capital and so on, it's at its best because it can make things happen that wouldn't otherwise happen. So I just wanted to say that I'm a great fan of this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braun.
Apologies, Convener, having trouble unmuting. Just really to get to again say how successful this community investment fund is. I've just quickly going down the list. It looks like 9 out of the 12 wards all had applications exceeding the amount of funding available at the time. So I think again it reflects a successful fund. The ward panel in Blairgowrie, which I chaired this time, once again enjoyed the involvement and to make the decisions. They worked well together. They had a debate over every case. It went well. As I say, as before, I just chaired, didn't have a vote, and I think it's a very successful fund. I think the ward panels enjoy it. And if my memory serves me right, I think it was Councillor Stewart who came up with this idea some years ago. So I think congratulations to him for such a successful project. It's worked very well, and certainly as far as our ward is concerned, we've exceeded the amount of funding available every year. So I think that's a reflection of how popular it is. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do agree. I think the fund has evolved through time and through different iterations to where it is now. I think as Councillor Cuthbert identified, that actual further progress, and there are some really good things that go on in the SIF fund, and we need to make sure we keep those very good things that go on. Happy to move the report. Agreed. Thank you very much. That ends our agenda for today. Thank you everybody for your contributions. Thank you.